League play for HGC this year is over. And the fight for the sole remaining spot at the HGC Finals at BlizzCon begins today. I'm Gillyweed, here to bring you all of the NA action, along with Dreadnought as always. And this week we've got Glowering here as our analyst. Glow, how about that Team Wish?
That was insane. Honestly, couldn't have started my day better. It's tragic that Team Liquid had to be the team they played, but Wish was my dark horse throughout the playoffs, so I'm super happy to see them make it to the next step. And then in the interview, be so confident enough to say they're going to 3-0 Tricked. I think that's really cool. Yeah,
I think it's incredible to see a team that came in through the Crucible into Phase 2 and now be able to take out Team Liquid. But on the other side, as Glowering said, it's pretty tragic. Not 1 year, but 2 years in a row now Team Liquid denied BlizzCon.
Yeah, it's sadly, you know, that's the competitive environment that we live with. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to win the game if you are going to be those team representing your region. It is sad. A team as long-standing as Team Liquid and as formidable as them for as long as they have. But Wish, they're a new sponsored team. They're coming in hot, and they're riding the momentum. You got to appreciate the level of play they're bringing.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that match versus Tricked Esports tomorrow. But we've got to talk about North America now. Let's start with the standings, which they're done and dusted. We're done with this, but we still can get a start knowing that Roll20 and Team Freedom, hey, they're at the top. They're guaranteed going to HGC Finals. This week is all about finding out who from 3 through 6th will join them. And then Lag Force versus Even and Death, they'll be going to the Crucible, and that'll be next weekend. Glowering, is it surprising to see those two teams for you going to the Crucible?
At the start of Phase 2, if you were to ask me which two teams would end up in the Crucible, I would have for sure said Even and Death, but the other one was a major wild card for me. I didn't necessarily expect Lag F to be the team to make the return to the Crucible, because they looked like they had been on the upswing at some points in the season. So it does surprise me a little bit, but I don't know. We'll see what happens in the Crucible.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting weekend. Very stressful for them, but also kind of stressful this weekend for all the teams going through playoffs. Let's take a look at the bracket for playoffs. We are going to have a step ladder format, which means 5th through 6th in the standings you just saw, they will face each other today. Winner of that takes on Tempo Storm tomorrow, and the winner of that match goes on for the final match of playoffs to take on Gale Force Esports. Winner of that will join Roll20 and Team Freedom at HGC Finals. Dread, we had some stumps in our last playoffs, but we have the potential here looking at these teams for a lot of really close series.
Absolutely, and it's even exaggerated that much more so with the lack of consistency that sits at the top of North America. I mean, the reason we get to have Glowering here is because of the consistency he has been able to display. I mean, let's be real here. You dropped one game to one team at the entirety of Part 2. Like, somebody's got to be the one to hype that up, and that is because of the consistency you guys have displayed. And now, the step ladder system that we have, suddenly every single step, you're kind of like, this can go either direction. And it felt the exact opposite of last playoffs.
Yeah, Glow, it's got to feel good to not have to go through playoffs this time, having done it for Phase 1.
Absolutely. It's like a huge weight off my shoulders. It's amazing to come here and view the playoffs from this perspective, just because it's a more relaxed environment for me. And right now, the #1 priority in my life is preparing for BlizzCon, but this kind of allows me to take a step back from that goal and think about the game from an outside perspective again, which is really cool.
Well, I'm really looking forward to your analysis for this series. Let's get things started. The battle begins now. Let's hear from Casanova and Hosty about the first match of NA playoffs.
With our team Superstars, we've had a lot of problems within the team early on in the season. But we've worked really, really hard to figure out a way where we could all come together and just get stronger looking towards the playoffs. And now that playoffs have come, I feel like we're good enough to have a real shot at making it to BlizzCon. So going against Spacesation Gaming as our first opponent, we're looking to just come out really standard drafts, take the easy 3-0. That way we don't show anything and we could take Tempo out right after.
I'm actually really excited to play against Superstars in the first round here. I feel like when we played them last, it started out really strong, flew out the gates, and then we ended up getting reverse swept. After one of our strategies we had a lot of success with in scrims, ended up just flopping. And I feel like this time we can just come in, play our best, and just complete the 3-0 that I feel like we should have been able to do last time. Getting reverse swept by Superstars is a little bit demoralizing in general. We were able to bounce back pretty quickly and look forward to playoffs, but right after it happened, it just feels really bad to get reverse swept in a series that you felt like you had complete control over. And it's not a good feeling, so we're definitely not trying to have that happen again, you know? Yeah, this matchup is more than just BlizzCon for us. We want to definitely get back at Superstars for that reverse sweep. Feel like we can just erase that from history with a solid performance here in the playoffs.
Ah, yes, the rematch of a reverse sweep that went awry the moment a team picked Nova on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Things were going so well for Space Station up until that pick, up until that point.
Oh, man. That was a wild set to watch.
It
I'll be
was.
honest.
It was very wild. Dread, this is a point. Confidence from both teams from that. Hearing that Hosty thinks it could be a 3-0. I know Casanova believes that it should have been a 3-0 the first time they played.
Yeah, and I feel like again, Superstars' narrative for the longest time has been NA is not showing up, so we're just kind of here hanging out, doing our thing, trying to grow, and it's working out for us. And it does seem like they kind of credit the rest of North America in the coin toss aspect more than they are crediting themselves, so maybe that's the confidence level that they're showing, and I think it makes sense because they have constantly just been like, you aren't going to show up, or at least I can't rely on that, so I should be the confident team.
Yeah, it makes sense. Let's get into the cheers for both teams. We're going to start with Space Station Gaming. Got Gladman at the top. Oh, man, that's just not a surprise at all, but still nice to see. Thank you, Gladman. But Sophist is hanging in there, guys.
Glad to see you part of the leaderboards here, Sophist, contributing to the cause. Absolutely adore it here. But at the other side of the table, Superstars. We got Breakfang residing at the top there, 20,000 contributed. Even got Rambo V1. Still no Rambo V2 yet, but we are waiting for the day that he comes to rise into the ranks.
We'll be watching very closely for Rambo V2 to come back in the game. But we got to talk about Superstars. We talked a little bit about this for LagForce and the way that LagForce started to make a comeback, started to put up some good results. But Superstars has been so surprising, Glaron. Where do you feel like it was that things finally clicked for Superstars this phase?
It is really hard for me to actually put a pin in that specific moment.
Yeah.
For me, Superstars has been kind of like one of the bigger wild cards throughout North America. They have by far and away the biggest upsets from my perspective in HGC North America.
Yeah,
Tempo
Tempo.
Storm, SSG, they have moments where they just play out of their mind, but then at the same time, you'll see them in a rut. And you can make a similar argument for SSG. So it's really hard from my perspective to make predictions in this match.
And I feel like on that same note, though, with SSG and that inconsistency being displayed by them, I do feel like the Nova moment was kind of the beginning of that section. It wasn't necessarily, I don't feel like you could exactly say this was for sure it, but it kind of solidified it for me. And it has been a downward trend since that moment. So I feel like the fact that Casanova was willing to address that immediately and saying that they felt like that was the case and that was a big problem and they had the right to it, but they can do better this time. They will do better this time, says quite a bit about their mentality.
Yeah, it was like a mature response, and I think it shows, like you said, what their mentality is right now. And I think it's a pretty healthy mentality going into BlizzCon. So,
if there was ever a weekend for consistency, guys, it would be this one. Let's start with Draft 1. It'll be on Battlefield of Eternity, chosen by Superstars. That is the new favorite for Superstars, but even when they switch to this, it doesn't guarantee that it is a successful battleground for them to win on. We've got bans on Cursed Hollow and Warhead Junction, very consistent bans for both of these teams, but it's Battlefield of Eternity. That is a place where Space Station were able to defeat Superstars in the past, one of those two battlegrounds before Tomb that will not be talked about here at the desk anymore with the Nova. Anything immediately jump out to you, Glaring, from either of these teams for Battlefield of Eternity?
the North American meta in BOE in particular is always enjoyable for me to watch. Just the prioritization we put on Abathur and Globalist on this map, I think, is sort of unique.
Yeah.
And I think Superstars is one of the teams that has, like, Hosty in particular, I think, has good awareness when it comes to when he's playing the global, how and when he needs to pressure. So I feel like Superstars, it's obviously they chose this map, but they've got something prepared.
Yeah, we know that they before have liked to play Abathur compositions on Battlefield of Eternity, but sometimes that does come back to bite them because it is forcing them to try to draw things out. We'll see if that is going to be a pick for them, but for now we see bans on ETC and Tassadar, so no Task Tracer for Space Station. First pick Vala.
No surprise here. Vala's like got incredible burn. She's arguably the best hyper carry right now that's available in the game. And Equinox in particular lately has been showing like a prowess on Q-Build Vala. He trades really aggressively and it's always fun to watch him. So taking that into consideration, I would not be surprised later in the draft seeing Space Station build that double support-centric focus around Equinox.
do you expect the double support to kind of take over through this playoff system? I know there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes, so just right out the gates, do you think that's going to display itself throughout the playoffs? Or do you feel like because it's hyped for future patches that it's unlikely to display here?
I think if it is displayed here, we will see it throughout the rest, because I think it's more likely the teams that are in the later stages of the North American playoffs, for example, Gale Force and Tempo, I feel like those teams may be slightly more likely than these two teams to pick up that double support style of composition. But like you said, I definitely think it deserves, and we will see a place here on BOE for the double support.
All right.
And we see the early prioritization of Medic. That's got to be a deny pick for the Vala.
Definitely. We've seen so much Vala. Lieutenant Morales with the stem drone would help a lot, being able to siege things down or take out the Immortal really quickly. And Morales did get a buff, health regen, and then the lower cooldown necessary once you're done with Healing Beam before the energy will start to regenerate back up. So a lot of good changes for Lieutenant Morales. I should mention that we are on the Kel'Thuzad balance patch. So not yet the patch that's currently live, but now we do start to see some of the mana costs increase for Kel'Thuzad and then the Morales change there.
Yeah, sadly, we're not going to see any Anna popping up anytime soon, ladies and gentlemen.
Not yet.
She's been making the hype trains across the board here, but for the support avenue, we do see Spacestation Gaming. They're going to go with themselves an Uther and a Falstad. Pretty high Falstad, but talking about that global
that's Jason,
pressure,
right?
It is.
It does make sense why they'd go into that global, but the Uther is really interesting to me. Space Station, by picking up the Falstad at this moment in the draft, really leaves the rest open-ended. I don't really see a scenario where they don't go into a double support with Falstad Val, but they need a strong front line. That's what they got to be looking for, and I'd like to see Superstars identify the fact that Space Station's comp needs that beefy front line. And with Johanna not changed on this patch, it already limits a little bit the numbers that are available to them. ETC is already banned out. I'd like to see Superstars address the Warrior Hero pool on this ban, and they take out the Garrosh. That's good.
Malthael has got to be somewhat of a focus, I feel like, here for these teams, especially with that Uther Falstad on the side of Space Station. It's decent into the map. Is there any consideration on the side of Superstars to not go into it because they see that Falstad and afraid of the Gust, the interactions there, or is it not even considerate and not even a ban for Space Station?
So you bring up a good point with the Malthael in general. I think that Superstars might not prioritize it simply because Space Station had the foresight to leave their draft open-ended. They left their offlaner, which is most likely the Falstad, pretty early in the draft. He doesn't have too many hard lane counters, but I don't expect they'd pick up the Malthael because looking at their comp, Anubarak, Medic, they have Cocoon, they have a lot of sustain to deal with the Malthael. If they can secure one more hero to sufficiently disengage, then I don't think Malthael is a threat into their composition, but they might see the game different than me, and we could see them pick up the Malthael here.
Isn't that
it's
the
hard
beauty?
To say.
Beauty of North America, the top and the bottom, maybe not seeing the game the exact same way. I think that's a really good thing to highlight, and glad that you said that.
Is there any worry now for Superstars at the fact that, yes, they were able to take away Morales from Vala, but Space Station and banning Greymane, trying to make sure that there is a hero that benefits a lot from Lieutenant Morales? Any thoughts maybe a Lunara here?
So Greymane's just one of those ranged hyper carries. When Vala's out of the picture, there's a couple pseudo replacements that you can go with. Occasionally you'll see like Zul'jin, Lunara, Greymane, all of those sorts of styles, and they end up going with the Malthael Lucio. That's really
risky,
yeah,
right? Into the Falstad, it's a double, essentially what I call kind of R-based heroes, right? They're heroic-based heroes. When both of them use the sound barrier and you get yourself the Tormented Souls, the last thing you want is a heavy disengage, and you got the Falstad
you already
picked up. So it's a very high-risk decision.
Falstad was a great pickup by Space Station from my perspective after seeing the early Medic pick. No matter what, you're going to guaranteed get good Gust value, even if it's just flying over the Medic, gusting her in. But now that we see the Anubarak Malthael Lucio, it just makes Gust that much more important. It's like Superstars' draft can win in a straight-up team fight versus Space Station relatively easy, but Space Station should never give them, or should never really be in an opportunity to take that fight. They should always have Gust. They should have D-Shield if Gust fails, and we'll see what they round out the rest of their draft with. Superstars identified that there's a lack of warriors. I don't know what they'll go with.
Ooh,
Diablo, Zera.
Oh, wow.
Real Wombo-centric
Yeah.
here.
It's good versus Medic, that's for sure.
I'm a little scared that we're gonna see a Lunara here, and it will be Lunara Malthael, and they'll have trouble being able to get kills, especially with the control here. But she kind of was all that was left.
It's so much pressure. All right, burden of execution's on Space Station. It has to be flawless. They have to catch. You ideally want to catch both Medic and Lucio in the Void Prison, but that's very difficult. And of the two, the important one to get hit with APOC is probably Lucio. what I'd like to see, the execution is just on Space Station. They can win. They just made the game pretty dang hard to execute for them, but it's a solid draft overall.
High risk here for Spacestation
High risk,
Gaming.
but super high reward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they are effective with that initiation,
Yes.
right? Like if we were to draw a perfect world on how they want to approach the fights, if they meet the check marks, this won't be close. But if one of those check marks is missing, suddenly you can get a kind of kitty
Space Station, when they're on, their execution's on point. So I mean, like, if they can disrupt the Lucio and have Falstead match up into the Medic, disrupt that with Gust, then they can easily pick apart these team fights.
And what are you hoping to see from Superstars, guys?
From Superstars, I feel like they've got, I mean, again, it's just not letting that Wombo, right? Removing those check marks in order. The Void Prison, the Gust, and the Divine Shield, as you highlighted, Glowing, are high. I mean, they're all the resources that Superstars has to keep count of, always keep track of whenever those cooldowns are up. I think it's going to be possible, but I know this is weird to say that. I do think that Spacestation Gaming is going to be the team with a lot to prove here and that they're going to come out swinging. And I feel like Superstars picked a comp that's squishy, has to execute against that high, aggressive comp that Spacestation's built. And I feel like Spacestation's going to come out on top here.
I think that Space Station overall, in terms of execution, is the stronger team. However, Superstars' composition, if SSG fails to execute, will just completely ride over them. So it's kind of like a battle back and forth. A lot of this game is going to come down to both the Lucio and Medic's positioning, respectively. But I give the edge to SSG due to their excellence and execution in the past.
Yeah, what I have written down about this series particularly is that between the two, we generally feel like Space Station can be the better executors, but it does feel like Superstars always draft within their means. They don't really deviate to something that they can't execute on. And we've seen things where Space Station do pick things that, yes, if they could execute, then they would be able to defeat any team with that, with the drafts that they have, the counter drafting that we see from them. It's just not always that it works out for them. Thank you, Glaurung. We'll talk to you after the game. Let's get into it. Game 1 between Superstars and Space Station Gaming.
And here they are in the blue. It is Space Station Gaming. We have Tiger JK on the Uther. You know, you're going to have Jason on that very crucial Falstad. Casanova on the front lines playing Diablo. We have Equinox on Zeratul. And last has got to be Vala, played by Talking Trees.
And in the red, Superstars with Srey playing Malthael. After that, Hosty will be playing the Lucio, flexing on over to the secondary support. Yoda will be back on Lunara. Iacona playing Lieutenant Morales. And finally, Erho is playing a new Barak. Picking Diablo into Malthael seems risky.
It
beyond the Wombo.
It is a bit risky. It's just the high health pools that we know Diablo to have and that self-sustain can easily be negated by that max health percentile damage that we see the Malthael distributing. There's also a lot of slow play, like Golan kind of talked about for Superstars. With that Malthael poke, they have Lunar to throw out those poisons, but they have an element that you and I have highlighted through all of North America, and that is the double poison struggle. It's a double poison, double support on top of it all. So finding the way to secure these kills is going to be very difficult for Superstars, and they've got to be on point with their focus fire.
It's got to be the grenades. They got to have the grenades to pull them back in once they get low with the poisons, and then maybe even a leaping strike, not only to make sure that Lunara can zip and dodge around things like Zeratul, the Void Prison, Apocalypse combo, but just as leaping strike away, maybe to try to guarantee those kills. But it is kind of risky. Lucio can try to assist her by, if she does go in and be more aggressive, going along with her, but that's not traditionally a place that you see Lieutenant Morales wanting to go. And Stemdrone should be able to hopefully help Lunara with that too.
And one thing we haven't addressed too much when looking at these compositions is just the element of 1 through 9, the race capabilities of them. And that ultimately, for Spacestation Gaming, they do have some skirmish-ish heroes. Like Falstad, Zeratul, and Vala, the damage healers, aren't necessarily poor levels 1 through 9, but their composition goes from good to great post 10. And so I'm not going to claim it's out of the realm of possibility that they're going to get that skirmish, because look up on top, nice boot, but the Equinox, he's going to lock it in, first blood to Space Station. And that's what I was saying. They don't have to avoid them, but I don't necessarily expect them to overly pick these early fights, because once 10 comes online, that's where that Wombo is. That's where that kind of fear when the Zeratul Diablo got locked in that we expressed comes online. But
Space Station does have a really good tool already to be able to do some damage to the Immortal earlier on, and that is Monster Hunter from Talking Trees. Although I'm looking, and we have a Curious Wingman for Falstad picked up. We'll see if that translates into more of the Lightning Rod build as he continues to pick up talents. And then over on the other side, Wraith Strike build, getting the range on Death's Reach makes me think maybe we're going to see Immortality as another way of trying to whittle down the health bar of Diablo.
And on that note of the level 1 Falstad, that is such an interesting talent choice because it is weird. On a map like Battlefield of Eternity, there aren't very many mercenary camps to really pick up, but also you aren't side-soaking necessarily enough to ever get that seasoned Markman, but also you aren't dancing around the middle long enough to ever get value out of Gathering Storm. It makes sense to kind of see that fluctuation here for Jason, and we'll see if he gets much value out of it, but a team who's getting value now is, in fact, Superstars here onto that Immortal. They're going to start the halfway show, it looks like, after that sweet amount of damage, but experience is a huge problem right now for Superstars.
Yeah, interesting to see that Superstars are the ones who are able to get halfway there, but then again, the positioning for them was really good. Equinox trying to go in and get the kill on Yoda before he dashes out, and he will get it. There's another kill for Spacestation.
Posey maybe going in on that secondary support, getting the body blocks onto Tiger JK, who is absolutely ooms. Ray with the follow-up. The dots are there, and that is going to be killed. Uther in heal form now. Gonna drop a couple onto Equinox. Maybe he wants to go back in here, but Superstars with a man up, a level down this early on. And if Falstad's still pressuring up on top, it's on them to make something happen here.
Yeah, Superstars are still playing it somewhat passively, although they're going to send Sray back. Sray at least can throw out a Death Shroud, get the Reaper's Mark on the Immortal, and then go back to the defensive positioning if they want. But so Superstars got that far ahead in the Immortal, and then we're still willing to stand in defense against Spacestation. It just shows that they respect the poking power of Spacestation, and they want as full of an Immortal as they can possibly get here. It's not just about winning it. It's winning it in a way that they can do something with it.
Burrow able to make it out there with that Burrow charge, but when it's all said and done here, we find ourselves with a very healthy Immortal, about 50%. It's going to march its way up here towards that top lane. Spacestation Gaming trickling in toward that level 7 talent tier. May look to get aggressive past that Immortal with that, but Superstars, they're going to pick up their Shaman Camp, and it's all about what they can do here up on top.
Shaman Camp plus the Immortal. Superstars are looking to get things kicked off, open up this battleground as best as they can, and catch up in the experience that they started to get behind because of the Falstad, because they fell behind in the global factor. They still have the 2-man in the bottom lane though, so it won't be as strong potentially of a push. They have a good damage dealer who can try to push people away, as well as Arrow. Talking Trees needs to be careful here. Even using a hand of a protection just to make sure that Talking Trees did not get caught from Arrow.
Very good dodging of positioning here for Iacona, because Casanova's been sharking his way onto the side, constantly looking for that initiation. We see Jason sharking his way onto the sides as the Immortal. They're going to move past it. Flip attempt for Casanova. A lot of damage there. Chasing from Equinox, but the poison damage, rebuttal from Yoda there on that Lunar is a bit too much, and now Space Station Gaming's on full retreat.
Yeah, you can really see the double support versus the single support of Uther and the poisons. Tiger JK is having a rough time keeping members of Space Station alive. Only one went down, it was Falstad, but even still, Casanova dove in, immediately had to go out. Let's see if Equinox can make his way out of this. He's gonna get caught. And there is a kill for Superstars.
Just barely out of range. Yoda to maybe get that slow and further themselves upward. But Superstars, they got the experience back into their favor, and that was the biggest fear here, is that they had maybe sacrificed too much onto that first Immortal and wouldn't be able to get enough out of it to justify the experience loss here. But they very much have proven me wrong, and they find themselves ahead in experience. Now it's important that they just keep up this pressure. We know that Superstars is a team that when they fall behind, it's not always clear if they understand what is necessary to come back into these games. So as long as they have control, though, they do look like a completely different team, typically a lot more dominant than whenever they find themselves down in experience and talent tiers.
Yeah, and I feel like that's only gotten increasingly better for Superstars as they have gotten more comfortable with Yoda being the shot caller for the team. He brings aggression to Superstars that we have wanted to see for a long time. And it's just even better when they are ahead and he can find opportunities for them to continue that lead, whereas we might have been critical of that from them in the past. So this is on track for Superstars to maybe be able to claim the first game in this best of 5.
Yeah, they're doing a darn good job so far. Also, shout out to Tiger JK for that cleanse on that grenade. Might have gotten Talking Trees into kill potential, and also Iacona's grenades. He's been throwing out a lot at these front gates, and honestly, he in the past has been, since the Lieutenant Morales rework, setting his team up for a lot of different kills. But even throughout this entirety of this match, he has made Space Station Gaming's, check themselves before Superstars is the one to wreck them.
Iacona, we've been highlighting him a lot the past couple of weeks in his plays on a lot of different heroes, even Karazim, which was rare for us to get to see from Iacona. But Superstars has been chased all the way away. Arrow goes back in. The poison's ever so ticking down, but Equinox stays alive.
Miracles do happen there between the tap, the frisbee, and the heals of Tiger. Barely able to keep him up. Srey doing work with that passive, though, onto the Immortal. Keep in mind that it does not directly translate like on a traditional hero, but it still does a freaking lot of damage to those Immortals. And with the Heroics on 9, Superstars is going to be able to start this halfway show. It's just how much beyond that, Hosty?
But Heroics are also here for Spacestation, and we knew that that would be a big change. This is the time for Spacestation to try to claw their way back into this game before they lose much more. They have lost halfway down to the Immortal, but done a little bit of damage to the Immortal of Superstars. We've even got Divine Storm, not a Divine Shield here. It is all about the Wombo for Spacestation.
If you thought that we were highlighting a bit of a risky burden of execution composition before, not going into that Divine Shield, and in fact going Divine Storm has put that much more pressure onto the shoulders of Equinox on the Zeratul in this game.
Yeah, it changes the idea of what Spacestation should have. We saw Vala and we thought hyper carry, but this is about more. This is about the Wombo combo. Equinox, the Void, Hosty's there, Void hits 3. Here comes the APOC.
Sound Barrier is unable to go off as he gets hit.
Storm.
They just wiped the floor with Superstars here. 4 dead. Srey dropping the Tormented Souls, but it's not going to matter.
Ouch, Dread! That was the first iteration of the Wombo, and we put the burden of execution on Spacestation, and they delivered with the first Wombo. That lets them move right into position that they can finally bring down the Immortal and try to get some structural damage of their own.
They're looking to fight back here, saying, Superstars, you may get the very first Immortal, but we found our 10s. It is time for us to shine, and they'll be able to do so here, as I believe we're going to be marching down to the bottom lane with this Immortal. And with that, how much more will we see Spacestation get? We also have to keep in mind that these are long cooldowns. They are very, very long. 50 seconds for the combination between APOC and Void Prison to come back online. And this composition is far less terrifying without those Heroics. So Superstars might look to get aggressive in the small window.
Yeah, the best news for Spacestation in that regard is that Srey used his Tormented Souls on the way out. He's like, I'll just drop this and walk away. And so that is one inhibiting factor for Superstars to try to get back into the fight. But things like Cocoon, the Stim Drone with Leaping Strike, those are still available. The Sound Barrier for Lucio. And that may be why we're seeing Spacestation play a little more passively here. They did send Equinox also up to the top lane just to try to take out that fort that had gotten pretty low from Falstad side soaking. So Spacestation will walk away from this Immortal phase, taking out both of the forts, and now they're collapsing on Hosty.
They got to hit the Rain of Vengeance here, but Hosty out too fast with that Accelerando, showing off the speed boots he's got there. I guess they're roller skates. They aren't technically boots, but either way, he is going to be just fine here. And I think that transition of Zeratul to that top lane only shows the understanding of the compositional advantages and disadvantages for Spacesation Gaming. They use their Wombo. They know that they have made themselves a very Wombo-centric composition with that Divine Shield adjustment. And with that, when they aren't up, they're like, well, we'll just focus on getting every ounce of experience on the map and look for the fight when, conveniently, those are back online. It's slow play, and sometimes maybe we ask for a bit more aggression, but it's also extremely calculated in this sense.
Yeah, very smart, too, as long as something like a Rain of Vengeance, a charge of that, or, of course, Mighty Gust is still up, too. After the Wombo's been used, if Superstars tries to go for a re-engage, you've got the disengage from it. It's a pretty cool combination of abilities we're seeing from Spacestation, and it's paying off. At least paid off for them to get back into the game after being behind in the early game from Superstars.
And after that happened to Superstars, you know the mentality has got to be constantly keeping track of where all the Lucio and the Morales are at all points in time, ensuring that maybe they can be split up, and beyond that, even just making sure that they do not get 3-man voided. That is about, if you were to set the Wombo combo ideas of when it's okay to set the void, 3 is the dream. Anything below that, it's on who are those targets, right? Are they the ones necessary to win these team fights? So just trying to remain a bit more split. It's very difficult with their composition, especially Morales literally has to be next to those people, but it's got to be something changing if they're going to avoid that 1-2 punch that was so cleanly executed by Spacestation.
Hosty has to be someone that Spacestation is looking at within this Wombo, within the Void Prison. Sound Barrier and his way of skating in, dropping it the minute that Void goes down, or at least to make sure that it hits around the same so that they're shielded from APOC, that's going to be huge for Superstars to try to get through it. Maybe even if Stray can get on the back line, scare away Talking Trees, scare away some of the potential follow-up from that too. But then again, you skate in and you maybe risk getting into range of Divine Storm. He does have Chase the base, and he's working on trying to get that finish. He needs 5 more heroes hit, and then that will increase the arc and the range as a way of maybe trying to push away Uther, trying to get people away from being able to follow up from that. So we'll see how Superstars deals with it the next time, because only Gust has been used. The Wombo is ready.
Yeah, and look at that. The devastating charge there. Well, a lot of pressure onto Jason, actually. Urho finding himself in a convenient 1v1. So both of these teams just trading back and forth here, but it's up to Superstars to pick the fight here. Pre-16, Equinox found himself a Stray. Nobody has actually bumped into him, so he is still nice and hidden there over on that flank, and he's going to find Morales in a second. Ooh, very scary for Superstars.
Yeah, Yoda's been hanging out pretty close to these supports. There's that Singularity Spike, not finding anyone, can't seek her in. There's just back and forth who can get the poke in these defensive positionings. No one really doing too much yet. For Superstars, it's far more about making sure that they're avoiding these trades. Equinox does throw some damage onto Stray, but Morales should be able to heal him back up in no time.
That is not a good sign for Superstars. The fact that they're still losing a couple of skirmishes here as the Gus is just now come back online. They're going to get overly aggressive, trying to get onto trees. They drop the Cocoon, Tormented Souls. The Gus burnt and dropped onto Lucio and friends. Nobody down quite yet. The Cocoon reveal, it's Casa. He's going to go ahead, Shadow Charge Urho. No flip yet.
Airho is very low as Tiger JK walks back in. So is Stray. Sound barrier has to be forced. There is the Void, which means APOC is online and dropped on top of these members.
Stim drone used, but it's not going to matter. Divine Storm is all it's necessary. 26 seconds, no more Lunara. 16 talent tier soon to be for Space Station, unless Superstars have something else to say around this Immortal.
Well, they can at least try to burn down knowing that there's Uther there, but Maltheo goes in and just gets deleted by Space Station, and that is getting even better for Space Station to claim this next Immortal.
They're going to go ahead and bump this up, start off the animation, wait for it to come down, and really, without a Maltheo for another 20, this is going to be a very easy second half in Immortal. They've got the 16 talents, and Gilly, we are in a game where Space Station's primed to take the first keep, maybe more if they get those Wombos back online.
Yeah, they get 16, 50 seconds, they get their Wombo back. Things will be scary for a defense for Superstars to keep their keeps, their core alive, but they're going to go into Casanova immediately. Rain of Vengeance, Gust, both thrown out just to make sure he can stay alive.
And the Cocoon on top of it all, more resources from Superstars, but they are not done. They need this fight. They are so very desperate. Yoda trying to trade into trees. Nice impale over the wall. He's going to aggress. Shadow Charge, or Burrow Charge goes in onto Tiger JK.
The grenade!
The grenade, the poison's going to end up killing him, but he will go into Ghost Form, have a couple of heals. No Anubarak still for Superstars. And they're just going to keep trying to pick this fight.
They're going to keep rolling. Casanova goes down, but he is A-OK. He'll come back. Does not have the souls, though, so he will be a weaker version of Casanova. Still an Uther for an Anubarak. Jason flies back in, seeing if he can catch anybody retreating. So we had a fight. Superstars willing to take a sub-16 fight into Space Station because they knew the situation was that dire. This well-shielded of an Immortal, as well as the members of Space Station with their Wombo being back online. He can APOC from afar.
He's going to use it. A lot of damage. Hosey got the boop out here. The sound barrier drops in. He is going to turn this. Space Station Gaming. They lose the Fawcett. They lose themselves a Falla. And Equinox is soon to follow. Superstars turn it around.
Yeah, Casanova gets here and maybe did not want to be here as he falls after the rest of the members. What changed in this?
What changed is, did we keep track of the number? 2 was the answer. 2 people were the only amount hit into the void, and the target that they went to get the kill on top of was Lucio, who had his E already procced on healing in the process post-16. Lucio, he's pretty decent in that avenue. He was able to hold his own, and then more importantly than anything is the fact that he got a sound barrier afterwards. That is just absolutely not okay with this style of composition. Again, we want to start the checklist. First the void, the APOC, and next is a lot of death timers starting. They failed in avenue number 3. And we find ourselves on an even footing game in a keep still standing for Superstars. Above all else, they kept themselves in a non-pressured catapult game. That is a miracle.
Tiger JK also wasn't there to hit the Divine Storm immediately after that too.
Yeah, also.
Huge difference from that. The 2 people Void Prison not having all of the follow-up. Casanova did follow up with Apocalypse, but he wasn't quite there to make sure that he could throw his big body in and take off some of the damage from the rest. So Superstars find a way through the Wombo. Zeratol's going to sneak his way potentially in and take out the keep to give catapult pressure to Spacestation. It's very low.
Yeah, he's going to be just fine going in there, locking this down. Nobody able to stop him as there is no global and nobody can get the back time fast enough. So keep up here for Spacestation Gaming. And 30 seconds away from what is going to be the Immortal. Now, there is no global on the side of Superstars. Also, they have essentially 0 wave clear that is worth writing home about. And that means now that those catapults that we were concerned out in the bottom lane with the globals and also having the pseudo-global of Zeratol, Spacestation has time on their side throughout the entirety of this game. And if you're a cooldown-based composition, you legitimately cannot ask for more.
Sray going in. Speaking of a cooldown with Tormented Souls, but the gate is still there. He can't get in. Gust hits so many members of Superstars, throwing them into close to the base of Spacestation. Equinox finding to see if he can catch anybody, get a good positioning for the Void Prison and the Apocalypse follow-up. But not finding that, Superstars staying spread apart. They at least get the positional advantage to start on the Immortal. But problem is, Cocoon and Tormented Souls are down, and we've got the Wombo still as a possibility for Spacestation.
Yeah, the biggest thing is the lack of Tormented Souls makes it very unrealistic that they can take a fight, but they almost need to. Well, the Gust is off of cooldown. We see the Shadow charge in on to Urho, a little bit of damage and respect given. And now it looks like Superstars is going to retreat here.
Saw some usage out of the Wingman. That was a lot more damage than I thought it was going to be. Saw some usage out of Wingman for Jason, stealing the Shaman camp and putting some pressure on the remaining keep for Superstars. That did force them back too, but Superstars, they're on somewhat of a timer. They are starting to fall back behind in experience, even though they had caught up a lot by the kills that they got at their other keep fight. But it is so scary for them at this moment to step forward. They have to remain spread out.
On the right-hand side, Equinox trying to find the right squishy target to open up on, looking for the Void Prison. When can he drop it? Will Superstars even reveal him whatsoever? They should see him. He goes into Yoda. That's a bad reveal. He's in a terrible position. Casanova's fighting on the other side as well. Cocoon is going to be dropped. This is the moment Superstars needs to capitalize.
Yeah, this Cocoon was excellent, knowing that Equinox is so far away from the rest of the team. Hand of Protection used to save trees. He is getting low in health. Rain of Vengeance goes down, but so did the
Tormented
Gust.
Souls?
Divine Storm barely keeps alive. Tormented Souls is just obliterated. Malthael's already out of this. Apocalypse after the Void Prison. Spacestation are staving this.
It's a 2-for-1. We get the sound barrier for Superstars, so a moment where they have an advantage in this fight. Yoda has to stay alive. Casanova goes in. Shadow Charge gets the suplex over, flips him. Leaping Strike is going to be used. That puts him in a corner, and he is out of here. Iacona is going to be going down. How many more? Looks like that's all.
Looks like just him, but 4 is enough for Spacestation. Catapults on the core, starting to bring down the shielding. Hosty will boop him back, but 40 seconds until Lunara is here. We've got 20 until Malthael is back, and all of Spacestation up except Vala. They move on to the core, and they will take Game 1 over Superstars.
We asked if Spacestation Gaming had the coordination to use such a high execution Wombo composition, and they answered very quickly with a good old yes. Taking that first game here over Superstars. Glaron, gotta ask, what did you think after all that?
I mean, that was a pretty wild game.
Apparently I asked Glaron before he was ready. That was my bad.
Yeah, that was a pretty wild game. Overall, I think that it illustrated both talking points we went over, where if SSG's execution isn't on point, Superstars comp through the inherent sustain and AoE damage will rise, and that's how they ended up making that comeback after that wild team fight. But SSG in particular, like the team fight we're going to break down here in a little bit, really shows their execution, but they were hit or miss, I'd say. It wasn't like a clear dominant surgical victory. It was a little bit scrappy, you know? But at the same time, they had good enough execution to make it work. And as we go into this replay, initially I want to pause and take note of overall, SSG's execution here was really good, but the thing that I want you guys to keep your eye on throughout this entire thing is watch Hosty. He actually almost plays this so phenomenally. He avoids a lot of CC, and then his break it down gets interrupted by the APOC just so slowly. So Hosty barely makes it out right here, and then SSG's execution's great. Incredible Void Prison. Caught him right at the moment where they're clumping. Jason fears away the Malthael, but as you see, Hosty is actually in the break it down animation as the APOC hits. That's so unfortunate for them because it otherwise could have been a different fight. But SSG's execution to pick apart and isolate the team composition from Superstars was pretty surgical there, I'd say. Right when they hit level 10, they did exactly what they needed to secure that Immortal.
Yeah, that was the first time we got to see the Wombo combo, without a doubt the cleanest version of it, right? And I feel like a lot of that, I don't know if I would give credit to Superstars trying to avoid the Wombo combo as much as it was, again, kind of, it felt like it was hit or miss execution more so